Go get it.
This is not America. Sha-la-la-la-la. Little piece of you.
Hey, welcome to Talking Truth to Power. This is your Freedom Talk Radio in Nevada. I'm your host, Brendan Trainor, and my co-host is Leland Faegre.
We're also in California.
Yeah, also in California.
Northern California.
Yep.
It's just right there as the crow flies.
Well, do you think Governor Mario Cuomo will have to return his Emmy?
Well, yeah. Well, I heard a bunch about the Emmy. Everybody was celebrating that Emmy. Even one of my favorite artists, Billy Joel.
Billy Joel, did he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Big
we didn't start the fire?
Big on Andrew, yeah. I mean, come on. Sober up, people.
Robert De Niro was fawning all over him on one of his tweet videos.
Was his restaurant closed during all of this? He's got a place down on...
I don't know.
I think it's way down on the lower end of
I mean,
Manhattan.
he can afford it. I mean, I don't know about his help. But
Yeah. But, I mean, was he able to operate?
I don't know. We'll have to ask.
Yeah.
But, you know, that Emmy is beginning to look as phony as Obama's Nobel Peace Prize.
Didn't he drop more bombs than anybody else?
Yes, he dropped more bombs than anybody else, and he started 7 wars.
Well, the history of the Nobel legacy is that they produced armaments. So maybe that's what they were actually
That's what they're really,
yeah.
And now that they've nominated Black Lives Matter for the prize, they're going to have to change the name to the Mostly Peaceful Nobel Prize.
I think that would probably work, actually.
Well, you know, Mario is caught with his pants down, and his brother can no longer interview him, and it's beginning to look more and more like the Democrats are just a more polite version of everything that they said that Trump was doing wrong.
Well, I don't see the politeness, but if you say so.
I know, well, that's right, because Cuomo is a bully.
These are the rudest people on the planet.
I know. Cuomo was a bully, and Trump was a bully, right? What's the difference? They're both New York politicians.
Well, he wasn't. Trump was not a New York Paul as such.
Yeah, that's right.
He was a businessman.
He was a businessman.
Yeah.
Yes.
He just frequented their circles.
Right. But you know, and what we had with the border during Trump was kids in cages.
Yeah.
And now we have
Turns out they're
juvenile detention centers.
We have to label them differently in order to deploy the same strategy.
There's really no difference. Like they say, there's not a dime bit of difference between the two parties, and we're seeing that unfold once again. And then it looks like Neera Tanden may not get confirmed.
I see that, but I really think that's wishful thinking.
Yeah.
Somehow or another, she's going to pull the votes.
You think a Republican will cave?
Well, I don't know. Well, I mean, we'll see. I mean, I'd like to see her go away. Apparently, a lot of Democrats don't want her either.
Right.
But, I mean, she is.
Manchin. And the thing is that the Justice Democrats are shielding for her.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, she is the one that wants to cut. They said she has experience because she has no experience in operating a big agency or handling budgets.
Yeah.
But they said that she has experience because as a child she received these benefits. Yeah, but as an adult she spent her whole career trying to cut them.
I did hear that. Yeah, that is very funny. I mean, the whole thing would be funny if it wasn't so damn serious.
I know.
It's just pathetic.
Like Pete Buttigieg is transportation secretary because as a kid he liked trains.
Yeah, right. So he's perfect for that job. You know, and I mean, let's be honest about it. Anybody in a figurehead position of an agency, a bureaucracy like that, they're not doing the work.
No.
They got people around them doing all that, so it's just a figurehead. It's just a perk to somebody who's been loyal to the party for many, many years.
Right.
And guess who? It was Hillary who she was loyal to.
Yeah, but the point is, as the Justice Democrats like to say, nothing will fundamentally change under Biden.
Where'd that term Justice Democrats come from?
They created it themselves.
Talk about an oxymoronic phrase.
Yeah, like the Freedom Republicans, the Freedom Coalition, so they call themselves the Justice Democrats.
Oh, man. Who has more fun than we do here on Talking Truth to Power?
So, so now they're shilling for Neera Tanden. They're saying, and of course everybody is, they're all being promoted because of their identity. So, Jan Pesky, was that her name? Pascal? Or
I guess the P is silent. Psaki, you're talking about?
Psaki,
yeah. Jen Psaki. I always pronounce the P, but I'm not hearing it in media platforms, so maybe it's silent.
It's a Polish name, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
I love the Poles, but I hate her.
Whenever somebody gets criticized, she keeps bringing up their identity.
Yeah.
Well, she's an Asian woman.
Because that's their language.
And the Secretary of the Treasury, what's her name? Janet Yellen. Mm-hmm. Of course, that she's the first woman Secretary of the Treasury.
Yeah.
And Lloyd is, he's the first black Secretary of Defense.
It's the first thing they reach for, isn't it?
I know.
In every case, yeah.
So instead of liberty, equality, fraternity, now we have equity, diversity, and inclusion.
Is that your own? That's damn good. It's the writer in you. Damn good.
Yep. So, we're coming along that nothing will fundamentally change, but slowly but surely we're being dunked.
Changed.
Changed, exactly.
Yeah. Transformed.
Yeah.
Wrung out. I mean, the landscape is awful.
I know.
For the first time in my life, I actually turn the volume down when I hear certain things, Just can't listen to it. It's intolerable.
Right.
It's too stupid. I don't have time for stupid.
That's why I can use YouTube on my smart TV, and I can, if I see a YouTube app that I don't like, a video app, I just don't listen to it. I don't have to.
How smart is that television of yours, by the way?
Its IQ is about 130.
Okay,
it's
that's
smarter
pretty
than
damn good.
Average human.
You should be able to enjoy that then going forward.
Well, so the Great Reset is upon us, and we'll be back to discuss it a little bit more.
I think we're well into it, aren't we?
Yeah.
Because what I see is like nothing I've ever seen before.
Small-town quality and care with today's most advanced technology in the truck and automobile repair industry. It's exactly what you'll...
Getting to know you.
Let me tell you about America Matters with Eddie Floyd. It comes on every Monday at noon. Don't want you to miss it. That's America Matters with Eddie Floyd.
To join the conversation, call 844-790-TALK. That's 844-790-8255. Now, back to the show.
Hey, welcome back. It's Talking Truth to Power. I'm your host, Brendan Trainor. My co-host is Leland Faegre. I don't know, should we defend Facebook for once?
I think we have to.
Okay.
Even a broken clock is right twice a day.
Yeah. So, and there are a lot of people that should know better that jumped on the bandwagon about Facebook saying that they're not going to pay the news link tax in Australia. And a lot of people said that they're canceled Australia and all this stuff. And, Facebook does a really bad job and we have a lot of bad things to say about Facebook as far as their censorship and the way that they
conduct themselves.
Do not allow for free speech.
Yeah, but not in this segment.
Yeah, not in this segment.
We're going to talk well of them in this segment.
Because Facebook did not ban news in Australia. It simply decided to refuse to carry news links on its platform, which it would be taxed for. Anyone can still visit the actual news websites. And this was a power play by Rupert Murdoch. Australia right now has a conservative government. They call it the Liberal government, but that's supposed to be a classical Liberal government.
Right,
yeah.
in the historical context.
Right. But, he was trying to grab money, and Google, gave in to him, but then Google took a lot of blame from the people on the internet that still want an open web. And getting a link is a resource. It's not a burden. If Murdoch's money-making scheme is rejected by Facebook, for once Facebook is correct, the newspapers should not be rewarded for their laziness in utilizing the links they get for free. So we have to keep the internet open, even if for once we stand up and say Facebook was within its rights not to bow down and be taxed for a service that it provides for free. Right.
Yeah,
so,
well said.
Enough said.
Yeah.
But
we don't want to go too far in that direction.
No, we don't want to give too much praise to them. And then we had the spectacle of Mad Maxine's financial services hearing.
Yeah, quite a spectacle.
Yes.
If she's around, it's a spectacle.
All right. So
she's quite a sight.
The best part of it was the Wall Street Bets user and winner. He admitted that he was very thankful for the money made, Keith Gill. And his opening statement went viral because, he said that everybody that takes a risk, he said that he had his eye on the stock, MBE. What was it called again?
Go Stop?
Yeah, GameStop.
GameStop, yeah.
He had his eye on that
By the way,
stock.
there's one in Carson City.
Yes, there is one in Carson
City.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. He had his eye on it because he knew that it was undervalued, and he knew that they were going to expand their internet presence, their online presence, to make up for the fact that they were brick-and-mortar stores. And so he knew that there were too many shorts on it. And so he was part of the Wall Street bettors, and he made out well. And more power to him. I wish I knew about it in time to buy a few shares.
Yeah, and that information flow is the biggest part of the story.
Right.
What was the information that they were receiving, and in a timely manner that enabled them to manipulate.
Mm-hmm.
I'm okay with fairness on the street.
Right.
But if they're manipulating with information they shouldn't have, that's a whole different story.
Right. So, it's hard to tell what they were after for the first part of it, but it looks like they're definitely after the usual Democratic things. First of all, some kind of financial services tax.
Oh, yeah. They want to tax all transactions.
Yep. And, it's for the children.
Yeah, exactly right. It's for the welfare state.
Yep. And then
it's to
they
deepen
want
the role of government in our lives.
Right.
That's what it is.
And then they're mad. They were Brad Sherman, who was a former accountant, and he got a lot of kudos from the left because they thought he did a good job pinning down Ken Griffin of Citadel, who is a big Republican donor, so that's why they went after him.
Yeah, and Brad Sherman is his antithesis.
Right, exactly.
He's awful, isn't he?
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
So I think they're going to try and push net neutrality, as well.
Oh, they'll go back to that.
Yeah.
Yeah. That'll be part of the grand design.
So, and, we still have to hear from the rest of them. The rest of the hearings, there's actually going to be more. They're going to bring in the regulators, and you know what they're going to say.
Well, the good news is we get to see Maxine Waters.
Yeah, close up on Zoom.
Yeah. She doesn't know where money comes from.
No. All she knows is that it enables her to buy the biggest house in her district.
Yeah. Yeah, and to exploit her residency.
Right.
Something else.
So, more theater.
Yep.
And only bad will likely come out of it. So, and then the Supreme Court refused to hear the final cases about the Pennsylvania situation.
Awful?
So,
yeah,
it went from you have no standing before the election.
Yeah.
Then after the election, latches. You should have brought this up before, and now it's the case is moot. The election is over. We don't have to hear it.
The fix is clearly in,
right,
and was for many months.
Right.
They sort of conveyed that when they told us that no matter what happens on election night, the votes were still going to come in.
Right.
Hillary said, don't concede. Remember, she told Biden not to concede. This was an arrangement at the highest levels. It was an intelligence operation.
And then what was it? Was it Newsweek that came out with the story about the cabal? And
yes.
Yeah.
Effectively admitting that that's what it was. But they didn't go into the detail necessary. But
right.
But they alluded to it.
But a large part of it was the mail-in ballots, and that's being dismissed by, people on the left. Well, this was all about mail-in ballots. Yeah, well, mail-in ballots was the problem. That's what the Republicans were talking about.
Yeah, they needed 5 votes. They only got 3.
Yeah.
The 5 votes should have been there.
Amy Coney Barrett did not.
Yeah. She's turning out to be pathetic, isn't she?
Well, I don't know if it's too early to tell that, but
this was critical. This vote was critical.
Yeah. She is the type of conservative, I think, that, she doesn't believe in the courts promoting free markets if the legislature, state legislatures don't.
Yeah, I get that.
She probably wouldn't stand up against eminent domain abuses.
But Thomas did.
Yeah, Thomas. Oh, yeah. Thomas was pretty upset. He wrote a very good dissent.
A very good dissent.
Yes. So, I mean, he's mad at them because they don't hear gun cases, and now he's mad at them for this. But the Republican legislatures and governors and officials, they played a role in it too. You got to admit. I mean, they rolled over
at the state
for the
level?
most part.
Talking about the state level?
Yeah, at the state level.
Yeah. Oh, of course. Yeah. That's where the mischief was.
Yep. Now, Arizona is still having a big kerfuffle down there.
Yes.
Yeah. I get updates every once in a while, and that the Board of Supervisors is resisting the legislature that wants the full forensic audit.
But I think the Arizona Senate has decided they're going to come after that Board of Supervisors.
They were threatening to arrest them, and
I think they had a unanimous vote the other day, didn't they?
Did they?
Yeah, I think so.
All right.
Yeah. So we haven't heard the last of that. Meanwhile, Joe Biden is president of the United States. Honest to God.
I know.
What a mess.
Or maybe Kamala Harris is president. We don't really know for sure.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, he was quite clear on how disappointed he was about that decision. Effectively saying, if this isn't unconstitutional, I don't know what is. I'm paraphrasing, but in those words.
And then, so now the FBI has said that congressmen are under investigation, and they've already collected the metadata from their phones for possibly helping the white supremacists.
Right.
Us. Did you
and I.
Did you see the organizer for the Steal the Vote? Did you happen to see who he was?
No.
He's a black man that looks like Sammy Davis Jr. He's got the same
facial
body
expression.
build and facial, And so it's a funny thing that they have a black guy leading the white supremacist uprising.
It's like the Proud Boys guy.
Yeah.
You'd expect him to be wearing some sort of Nazi garb, and it turns out it's nothing like that at all.
But we're looking more and more like Venezuela. I mean, Venezuela, you had 2 legislatures, the National Assembly and the Constituent Assembly, and at one point there was actually armed conflict. I think there were helicopters in the air firing on the one of the assemblies, or that was years ago. But at one point there was. But it's we're falling into that trap.
Yeah, it looks very similar in D.C. The scape of barbed wire and concertina.
Oh yeah, they're going to be there. You know why? Because QAnon said that on March 4th, Trump will be restored to the presidency. So they're going to keep all these troops in there.
Well, they are afraid of us.
Yes.
And they should be.
Yeah. When the government is afraid of the people, it's better than the people being afraid of government.
Absolutely. Yeah. So it has dual purpose, I think.
And now the officer that was killed, the family says it was a stroke. It wasn't connected to the event at all. It wasn't tear gas. He wasn't hit with a blunt instrument. And
no apologies for those who advocated otherwise.
Nope, no apologies.
Yeah.
And still no news on the person that killed.
They put her away just the other day, right? Off the shore. So.
Hey, Dr. Phil here. I help people solve difficult and trying personal problems every day on my TV show, but there's one problem that's just got me stumped.
This is America Matters Media on AM 1180 KCKQ, a Lotus broadcast station. The power of radio since 1967.
Want to expand your advertising dollar? Sponsor this or any America Matters program by calling 775-827-8900, extension 2. Now, back to the show.
Hey, welcome back. It's Talking Truth to Power, Nevada's Freedom Talk Radio. I'm your host, Brendan Trainor.
I never left.
And Lee...
Oh, you mean our audience?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Lee Faegre is here as well. Did you know America is back?
Yeah, I heard that.
Yes.
I heard that from Biden himself.
Yes. We're like a boat drifting without a rudder, but we're back.
And it's such a deception because what he's really saying is that globalism is back.
Right.
It has nothing to do with the United States of America.
But the world is a little bit different after 4 years of Trump, though.
Yeah, well, he describes it as America because he doesn't want the American people to realize that, although they already do, half the country can figure this out. Mm-hmm. That this is not about America anymore while he's administrating. This is globalism.
No, it's about the NATO first.
Yep.
And
United Nations first.
United Nations first.
Climate change first.
Yep.
Anything that advances the cause of globalism.
Globalism, right? And eventually one world government.
Yep, that's his goal.
That's the goal.
He understands that's his purpose. I mean, he wasn't sitting in the CFR for years without that understanding.
Right. Yep.
That's why he was there. And
I think more and more people are picking up on the CFR, Lee, you know.
Well, I hope so, because Rush never mentioned it.
Right.
I mean, just in passing once in a while. It was disappointing that he couldn't lift up that lowest common denominator. And I don't mean any disparaging criticism of his audience, because they are obviously good Americans, and, you know, we need them. But he could have lifted them up, I thought, you know. Until Trump came along, I was rather disinterested in Rush Limbaugh's program. But then he had to address globalism because Trump was addressing globalism.
Right. Well, Biden has been bad-mouthing Russia and China, but he's really not doing much about it. Might not be much that he really can do after the last 4 years. But anyway, so he's... And lately, he bowed to Angela Merkel over Nord Stream 2. We've been talking about Nord Stream 2, and there was conflicting information. I think we finally have the lowdown here. And, Merkel might be an old mule, but she can still kick once in a while.
Yeah, and speaking of globalism, she's at center stage.
Yeah. I'm not praising Merkel because she is a conduit for Klaus Schwab of unknown ethnicity, who is the head of the World Economic Forum. If there is anything that sounds more globalist, I'd like you to know what it is.
Yeah, exactly.
But she stood up to those who were trying to use the incident with Navalny to stop Nord Stream 2. It's actually Nord Stream 2, I understand now, was more her idea than Putin's.
Well, that's what Trump maintained all along.
Right.
It was her idea.
Mm-hmm. And so we finally got the lowdown, and that is that the Biden had a commission that we didn't know about. This administration,
I don't think he knew about it.
This administration seems to like commissions. You know,
yeah. Oh, yes.
Whenever there's a problem, we'll create a commission.
Sounds so sophisticated.
There'll be a task force.
Oh man.
Yeah. So the commission decided that the only thing that they will sanction will be the actual ship, the Russian ship that's laying the last miles of pipe, and the Russian company that owns the ship. So in other words, German and Danish interests will not be sanctioned.
Yeah.
So that's the green light.
So there's no opposition.
Right. So it's expected the pipes will be laid by the end of April and gas will be flowing by June. So now we know that, and then also Merkel stared down Macron, the cosmopolitan.
Well, that wouldn't be tough.
No. He was, begging her to block it, and she refused to do it. And then they called the EU representatives to Moscow, and Sergei Lavrov read them the Riot Act, and they said they're not going to tolerate any more sanctions. They don't really need the EU anymore. They have already reset their economy due to all the sanctions after 2014.
Yeah.
And so, unlike what the senator from Arizona said,
McCain?
Yeah. What did you say?
McCain?
McCain, yeah. He called Russia a gas station with nukes.
Yeah.
And that's no longer the case. I mean, they are exporting one of the world's largest exporter of food, especially grains, and they're also exporting their military equipment like the S-400 anti-aircraft equipment, and so they no longer depend on exporting oil and gas. Mm-hmm. And also finished products. That's what Obama said about Russia. They don't have any cell phones, but they do have Sputnik 5, which is an excellent vaccine. And a lot of countries are going with Sputnik 5 instead of the Pfizer vaccine. So they're growing. And also, we don't hear a lot about Crimea from the EU anymore.
Not these days.
It's pretty much going to be a done deal. They're going to sort of table it, I think. They're not going to hopefully they'll recognize it sometime. But, there's not much they can do about it. And Russia did have a very good reason for what they did, according to international law. I think they followed international law when they accepted the Crimea back into the Russian Federation. So, but what will the important thing is, what will Merkel mean for Germany? Well, there's going to be problems, of course, but it's pretty plain now that she's going to leave Germany as the dominant member of the the European Union, and that she will use Russia as a bridge to China, and the trade with China will cement Germany's position. And her Christian Democratic Party is going to be firmly allied with the Greens and probably have a majority. So,
well, Germany was always the extant major component of the pan-European arrangement.
Right.
So she's just leaving it the way it was.
Exactly. She's sort of, like I said, she didn't elevate it, but she's cementing its position.
Mm-hmm. And hers as well, I think.
And Germany keeps the poorer countries in southern Europe, they call them the pigs, Portugal, Italy, Greece, and Spain, because they're so much in debt. But France isn't very far behind.
No, probably not.
As far as their debt goes.
Yeah, they're right next door.
So she is, Germany sustains these countries. They have to follow what Germany says for the most part.
And if you were just the average citizen, you'd be ticked off at that.
Yes.
You wouldn't want to subsidize the rest of the union.
No.
It's really not a popular idea to defile your sovereignty by associating with other countries that don't have the same values. This is what's the matter with regionalism and globalism. Mm-hmm. They won't learn their lesson either that way.
Well, the party that they call right-wing, which is probably more libertarian than right-wing, the AfD, they're kind of in disarray right now in Germany. So they're not expected to mount any kind of real resistance, at least for the time being.
It's that climate change nonsense. The Greens are all over that, and it's difficult to build up a party of loyalty, based upon that kind of opposition that's just so stupid. For lack of a better word. I was looking for a better word, but it's just stupid.
Yeah. The German Greens, just to be clear, they're not anti-intervention like the American Greens are. Right. They were the primary force beyond the dissolution of Yugoslavia and the bombing of Serbia and all that. So they're not quite the same players that the American Greens are, but they're still fanatical environmentalists.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So
first and foremost.
So the natural gas will keep Germany from having to import so much coal that they've had to, because they're getting rid of their nuclear for some reason.
And we don't have as much to export anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
Which was Trump's idea.
Right. I mean, they're not going to need to buy They probably will open up 1 or 2 token ports to American liquefied natural gas, but they're not going to have to buy it now. It's so much more expensive than Russian natural gas that isn't liquefied. It's coming through as gas.
Yep.
So, and then the Ukraine is kind of pushed down in importance. Yeah. Because they still will have a pipeline, but it's not going to be as necessary as it once was. So.
Right.
So.
Reversion back to the mean is what we're experiencing.
Yes.
Not just here, but abroad as well.
Yeah. Although Germany could then become more independent of American hegemony if this happens. But we'll have to see. I mean, Biden is going to keep the troops in Germany now.
Yep.
It looks like
we're going into Syria in a big way.
Yeah. Well, we'll talk about that in you
don't want to talk about it now?
Well, yeah. This just in. On February 13th, U.S. intelligence met with ISIS leaders in Iraq to coordinate new terror attacks. Oh, gosh darn. This is from Sputnik and Arabian News.
Yeah, right.
Must be Russian disinformation. Coincidentally, reports are that the new U.S. troops in Syria are building bases. Instead of guarding the oil, they are now there to fight ISIS.
Haven't we done enough damage in Syria?
That sounds reasonable. I hope the moderate rebels will help them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That worked out the first time.
Yes, it did. Well,
Burisma, I mean, I just heard where the Ukrainian government has stopped any further investigation of Burisma.
Oh, they did?
Yeah. In other words, there's nothing. I think
Biden was a conspiracy. He was listed as an object of the investigation.
Yeah. The official press release was that there was nothing left to investigate.
Driving force in truck and auto repair. Everybody knows.
This is America Matters Media on AM 1180 KCKQ, a Lotus broadcast station. The power of radio since 1967.
Unable to listen to the whole show? A recording of today's program will be available later today. Visit americamatters.us and click on the podcast link. Now, back to the show.
Reporting that they vaccinated half of their population. And I'm going to guess it's the Jewish half.
Well, I think Saturday Night Live forgot to give their Anti-Defamation League disclaimer before they told that joke.
There was no disclaimer.
Because we know that Israel is our greatest ally in the Middle East and that the only democracy in the Middle East, and they don't throw gay people off of roofs. And any time we observe Jews behaving badly, we must remember always and everywhere it's our fault. Okay. So immediately after Michael Shea, and you notice he's the black guy.
He's the black guy.
Yeah. So, the blacks and the Jews in New York have a kind of a strained relationship at times.
They have a thing.
Yeah. So immediately the Jewish lobby came in and cried, "Blood libel! Blood libel!" Do you remember what that was? We covered it once in the show.
Blood libel?
Yeah.
No, what was it? Remind me.
That was the 700 years ago.
Oh, that. Yes.
Yes, that there was a story that in the medieval times, the Jews were kidnapping Christian babies and then performing a Passover satanic Passover rituals and using their blood for the Passover blood.
Yep.
And so there is at least one Jewish scholar that says it was true at least a few times that they actually did that.
Right.
But of course, the Jews cannot abide that they ever did anything like that.
But if they invoke that charge,
yes,
that's serious stuff.
Yes. And so again, it's a distraction. It's a divergence.
Yep.
They don't want to talk about what they're doing to the Palestinian children today. Instead, they want to talk about a controversy from 700 years ago.
Yeah. Distraction always works pretty well.
Yeah. And also they used a bit of Talmudic casuistry in their replies.
Did they really?
Yes. In which they insisted that they had vaccinated all Arab citizens in Israel.
Right, Israeli Arabs.
Yeah, which is probably true. They did. The controversy is over whether or not they were vaccinating non-citizens, the Arabs that live in the West Bank and in the city of Gaza, the Gaza Strip. That's the controversy. That would be against the Geneva Conventions and so on. And so that's how the Jewish lobby acts. They always divert. They always exaggerate, and so I think Saturday Night Live actually apologized for it. I'm not sure.
There was probably an official release of some sort.
Yeah.
But not much.
Yeah, but it's still on YouTube, though. We managed to pull it down.
YouTube didn't take it.
Right.
Didn't take that down.
And then immediately there were videos appearing that showed Arabs in Gaza getting a vaccine. We don't know how many or what, but, it was a mitzvah.
Uh-huh.
It's a Jewish word for a blessing.
Right. Well, they had to, garner their forces in the aftermath of that bad story. So.
Well, we do have a few minutes here because I wanted to get into a little bit about Merrick Garland because it's the same thing. Garland teared up when he said his grandparents were refugees from anti-Semitism. And
that always works, too.
Yeah, his grandparents came over from Russia in the early 20th century, before World War I. And, I can't speak to the trauma his family suffered. Perhaps they were truly victims, but, my grandparents fled Ireland at the same time. Do I get to say they fled due to anti-Celticism?
I think you can. Yeah, I think you can.
As for the pogroms in Russia, do you know that the Jewish press, you can see it, there are photos of it, of the headlines. The Jewish press was claiming that the Russians killed 6 million Jews during those pogroms that lasted on and off. They weren't there constantly, but they were anti-Jewish, we would have to say mostly peaceful riots from 1880 until, the Bolshevik Revolution, really.
Into World War I or something.
Right. And Jews were mad because they were living in a Pale of Settlement. And unless you think it was like a Nazi concentration camp, the Pale of Settlement actually involved a vast amount of territory. What's today Lithuania, most of Poland, Belarus, most of the Ukraine, and parts of Russia. They all belonged to this Pale, but the Tsars did not, starting with Catherine the Great, they did not want the Jews to be in the royal court or to be at the center of commerce in Moscow and St. Petersburg. So, and you have to keep in mind also that many Jews at this point were what we today would call ultra-Orthodox. In other words, they went to yeshiva school. They didn't learn any, Russian. They weren't qualified to be part of the commerce. But those who were, she was afraid that because of the reputation of what the Jews could do, that she didn't want them in the court or in commerce. Now, this went on for a while. And actually, the Jews in the Pale of Settlement, they were able to use their own courts. They didn't have to go to Russian court if a Jew was accused of doing something. They actually had a good deal of freedom just within that Pale. And then Alexander II, the Tsar, he freed the serfs in 1861. He liberated the serfs. And then a few years later, he granted a lot of civil rights to educated Jews. Those Jews that were educated in non-yeshiva schools and owned property,
Secular.
they became free to go to Moscow and St. Petersburg and participate in commerce there. So what was the pogroms about? Well, you have to understand.
I was going to ask what was the pogroms were about.
We only have a few minutes here, but briefly, Russia absorbed hundreds of thousands of Jews when they took over Poland. And in Poland, the Polish nobles gave the Jews certain monopolies. And one was over a monopoly over this distillation and sale of brandy. So what they were doing was basically they were getting these serfs who had no freedom.
You're not going to say they got them drunk?
Yeah, they got them drunk. They got them drunk, and then they lent them money at payday lender rates, 50% a year or whatever. And when they couldn't pay, they took their property and made them landless. So that the Russians for decades tried to get the Jews to farm, and they never would farm.
So you're saying they used usury techniques?
Usury, yes, usury. In other words, usury I define as not a loan for a business or a loan, to put an addition on your house.
It's for food.
It's a loan for frivolities like liquor.
Sustenance. Yeah.
Right. And so after Tsar Alexander freed the serfs began to become more educated, and gradually they began to drink less and became more independent. But then Tsar Alexander, he was murdered. He was assassinated in broad daylight with a bomb, blew off his legs. He died shortly thereafter. And the Russians have always loved their czars, no matter how despotic you might think their czars
that's true.
were.
Very true.
They really saw their czar as the father of their country. And so it was like a 9/11 event. And there were some mobs, but like I said, the Jewish press was claiming that 6 million Jews were killed in these pogroms. But investigations, some by the British government and some by other sources like Alexander Solzhenitsyn. You can get his book, 200 Years Together, A History of the Jews in Russia. And he gives a detailed explanation of what went on, and it was primarily about money. They were primarily mobs looking to get Jewish money, get wealth, and they attacked taverns. The taverns were the center of Jewish commerce in Russia. So they attacked the taverns, but they didn't kill very many people. It wasn't 6 million. It probably wasn't even 6,000. It might have been more like 600 over the 20-year period, maybe even 60.
I think that 6 million figure is just out there, and they just pull it in whenever they want.
I know, it is.
For convenience.
Well, 6 is a numerical number. In the Bible, it's an important number.
Yeah, it comes up a lot.
Right. But the point is that what we're facing right now is a struggle over resources. The Jews are after, and the Jewish liberals and the black liberals, they're after our equity. They're after our resources, and we should not be deterred or convinced that what it really is hate and anti-Semitism. Mm-hmm. It's not.
Yeah. It's
really a struggle for resources, and we have to be aware of that.
We do. And you know what else we should be aware of?
But
this is a damn good show. I'm going to send this over to the Talking True